It's always very hard to close the forum and to give some closing remarks after everything what we heard today or every time when we have forum. And as all of you know, we create this unique event, very unique regional event for legal experts, for judges, human rights lawyers, almost anyone who is legal expert and professional in the region. And I think this is when it comes to this topic of this year forum, it's our second or third time that we have Article 6. Yes. So different aspect, but Article 6 is quite often in focus. And what is important, I think, to mention to all people in the region, this is not something that is coming from, I don't know, UK or Sweden, and then we need something to implement in this region that is not possible or not applicable. This is something that is common everywhere in Council of Europe states. So wherever you go, I mean, you will implement those standards that you are talking about every year in a forum. I think this is always, it's very important to remember, and this is not something where we exaggerate and we cannot implement. We must implement. But I choose to close with something that we are not talking about every year. It is not in our focus what citizens think about some aspects, and we are really fully focused on legal things. So civil rights defenders asked, together with Ipsos, in all Western Balkan countries, not Croatia, so Western Balkan 6, we asked them what they think about some things, some human rights issues, and we did that at the end of last year, and we have some figures. So, for example, we asked them if fair trial standards are very important for them, independent courts and everything, a rule of law, and so on. And they think, first they say that 36% average say that there is there is a rule of law and fair trial and independent court in their countries, but 62% think that there is no enough rule of law or fair trial standards. However, we asked them the second question. Do you think that rule of law and Article 6 in general fair trial standards are relevant for you personally and for citizens in your countries? And results are following: 68% in Albania, 93% in Bosnia and Herzegovina, 85% in Kosovo, Montenegro 89%, Macedonia 78%, and Serbia 91%. Say yes, this is very relevant for me and very relevant for citizens in my country. So they confirm that this is something very important for them. And it's not only important for us who are legal professionals, it's important also for citizens, and we should have that in mind. And last, we asked them, do you think that you are equal before the court? Do you think that laws are implemented equally before the court or other institutions and so on to you, or that depends on your background or your position in society? That's how Ipsos formulate that, not background, they say position in society. Unfortunately, many of them think that depends on position. So it's like 78% in Kosovo and Serbia, 80% in Albania and Macedonia, 84% in Montenegro, and 19% in Bosnia and Herzegovina. So those are the figures, and that's what citizens are saying. I think this may be good with something atypical to finish, because I want to say that our work here is very relevant, and I think that citizens will agree. Maybe they often don't understand what we are doing here, but I think they will agree that this is very relevant, quite relevant what we are doing. Thank you all for coming. Thank you all for participating once again, and I hope we will see next year in our very old setup, but again with hubs. And thanks everyone in hubs. Thank you.
Thanks. And I'll actually start off where Goran stopped, because I, in fact, feel very strongly that we should make this point. Very often, all these reforms, including independence, impartiality, and judiciary, are thought about in the context of EU integration process, and, you know, to an extent, this is something that we wouldn't be embarking upon unless we were required to, in order to fulfill these conditions. But then you hear something like this. You hear that actually, I mean, if you ask citizens of majority of the countries in the region, are they feeling positive about joining European Union? Percentages are much lower. But if you ask them, would you like to have independent partial judiciary? If you ask them, Do you want your government not to be corrupt? Do you want to be able to rely on your public administration? You get into 80s and 90s, as opposed to 50%. So this, in fact, is what citizens want. And it is then also what will assist the region in joining European Union. But that almost is a sort of, rather than looking at it in reverse, I think this is what citizens keep on voting for. This is what citizens keep on voting for, and I do think that we need to make that point, because quite often a lot of work that we do is seen as imposed externally, and this in fact is what is required by the region. So we've sort of, in the last couple of days, I think we can all agree that it's a topic well chosen. We've covered sort of very vital issue, and we attempted to cover whole range of topics, and we looked at impartiality, independence, and what constitutes tribunal established by law. We then looked at relationship of independent impartial tribunal to other articles of the convention, to the extent that we had time. But do look at our guide, because it elaborates on those topics much further. And then we looked at sort of responsibilities of judiciary to an extent, to act with integrity, professionalism. We looked at role of other branches of government in ensuring this independence, impartiality, and role of other social actors. And probably any of these topics could have merited a couple of days. And I gather that in some of the hubs you stayed well over 5 p.m. yesterday to discuss, and that's great to hear. So we know that there were limits to number of questions we could take and we could address, but we do hope that we managed to cover the ground to a decent sort of thorough standard. What we will do is working with judicial training institutes and centers with whom we have excellent ongoing cooperation. We'll try to make sure that the guide, the presentations, and eventually the report from the forum reach as many judges and other legal practitioners as possible. And we therefore invite all of you to also direct them towards our Rule of Law platform website and share this information. We will also distribute evaluation, very short evaluation questionnaires to you all in the hubs, and we'd be very grateful if you could fill them out, because we are in the process of both thinking through the topic and the format of the next forum. The COVID crisis, I think, made us all older and wiser over time, so we know that we can't promise anything, but we can promise that we are going to aspire to being all together in the same room next year. It is absolutely right, as sort of Tim said, that we've done what we could in the circumstances, but we are very well aware that this is not an adequate substitute for you being able to discuss both with your colleagues and with the President and judges of the European Court all these issues in person. So this is what we'll be looking forward to do, and we look forward to remaining in touch with you in the meantime. Again, ask you for feedback, as we will take that into account as we are planning our next forum. I will now just quickly wrap up with thanking everyone that ought to be thanked. First and foremost, President, judges of the European Court, and Mr. Markert for setting out the time in both preparations and setting out time to join us here. I hope you found it as rewarding as we did. To thank all of you, participants in the hubs, to thank our moderators, really excellent contributions, and we will also be looking to compile all your national reports and make that available on our platform. To thank our supporters, Konrad Adenauer Foundation here for both support and partnership, and Swedish and British governments. To thank logistics teams, sort of teams of lawyers who were working on this in the run-up to the event itself. We had a few technical hiccups, but I think that sort of was inevitable. It didn't disturb our discussions to a great extent. Thank interpreters, and I think I've done my thanks. In which case, we declare this forum closed. and look forward to seeing you next year.